The Girl in the Lewandowski Top by Tom Palmer, Chapter 2, Clothes. Archie arrived at school early the next morning. He brought his football and spent the next 10 minutes booting it against the outside of the dining hall, so he didn't have to stand around and look like he was just doing nothing. He had his Lewandowski book and match attacks card in his pocket. It wasn't long before Betsy arrived with Miroslava and Ali Khan, with Betsy's mum and another woman about the same age. That must be Miroslava's mum, Archie thought, as Betsy left the others to go into the school reception, then walked alone into the playground. Before Miroslava disappeared through reception, Archie noticed something about her. The top. She was wearing the Lewandowski top again, for a second day on the trot. Now Archie couldn't contain himself. He had to know about the top. So as she came into the playground, he passed his football to Betsy. Betsy trapped it cleanly, then chipped it back to him. "Can I ask you something?" Archie said. Betsy smiled. "About our Ukrainian family?" "Yeah," Archie admitted. "That, please." "Fine. That's all anyone wants to know from me now." She rolled her eyes. "I can tell you what I am allowed to tell you." Archie stayed quiet and waited to hear what Betsy had to say. "They're from a town in Ukraine called Kharkiv," she began. "It's near a border with Russia, and the one that the Russians are attacking. A lot. When bombs started to fall on some of the houses nearby, their mum and dad grabbed everything really quickly, got the dog too, and they hid in a bomb shelter under Miroslava's school. Then the next morning they drove in one of their cars to the Polish border, which took 3 days. And their dad dropped them near the border, and then they walked into Poland." Archie wondered why the dad had dropped them off. Hadn't he come too? But he didn't want to interrupt Betsy, as she was telling him things that he couldn't quite imagine happening to him, hiding in a bomb shelter under the school. The only bomb shelter Archie had ever seen was in a museum. Then driving across the country through 3 days. 3 days. Betsy went on. Then they got over the border just carrying one suitcase or bag each, and they were faced with hundreds of Polish people standing there waiting for them. "What happened to the dog?" Archie wanted to interrupt now. He needed to know why they didn't have the dog with them. "They had to leave it," Betsy said. "The dad took it back with him." "Why?" "I don't know," Betsy said dismissively, then took up her tale. Then there were these hundreds of Polish people waiting for them at the border, and Miroslava's mum was worried until she saw that the Polish people held up banners saying, "You are safe here," and "Everything for free." And they gave Miroslava's family and all the other families from Ukraine food and water and offered to host them in their homes, and there were piles of clothes for them to take. Archie wanted to ask about the clothes. He was thinking about the football top again. It was hard to take in what Betsy was saying to him. Then they went to stay with a Polish family for a few weeks before they applied to come and live in the UK, Betsy continued. And then, after lots of hassle, they came. Archie couldn't stop himself now. It was mad, and there were so much more important things like the dog, the dad, and the bombs, but he had to know. "Why is she wearing a Lewandowski top?" he asked. Betsy stopped. "A what?" "The football top, the one she wore yesterday, and why is she wearing it today?" Betsy paused, looked back to the school door. "That's one of the things I'm not allowed to say, I think," Betsy said. "But it's clean, I can tell you that. My mum washes it every night after Miroslava goes to bed and dries it overnight so she can wear it in the morning. It's all she'll wear." Archie shrugged. "But why?" "I'm not sure," Betsy said. She was looking at Archie like his last question was a bit weird. Archie put his hand on the Lewandowski book in his pocket. He had decided he would give it to the girl, because he suddenly felt overwhelmed by a surge of emotion, his eyes hot, his throat tight, thinking about how kind the Polish people had been to the family with their "You are safe here" signs. And he felt like he wanted to be kind too, to do something to help, something to say, "Welcome." "I've got this for her," he said clumsily. He was feeling so weird now, so he gave Betsy a tight smile, handed the book over, then booted his football across the playground and ran after it. After school, Archie's dad had arranged to come and collect him and take him to grab some food before football training. Archie had shyly avoided Betsy and Miroslava all day, feeling funny about handing the book over. Coming into the playground where parents stood waiting, Archie could see that his dad was chatting to Betsy's mum and Miroslava's mum. Betsy, Miroslava and Ali Khan were waiting there too. As he walked over to them, Archie heard one mum asking another why the refugees had come to the UK at all. Why couldn't they stay in Poland? But he ignored the remark, overtaken by another disturbing thought, seeing his dad there and knowing that Miroslava's dad was not. Now he really wanted to know why not. Why had their dad turned back at the border? It had been on his mind all day. Something even more, sometimes even more than the Lewandowski top. Miroslava's mum grinned as Archie approached. As he joined them, they all heard a car backfire, and Archie noticed Miroslava jump and lean into her mum, then, after a few seconds, recover herself and try to smile again. "We have waited to say thank you for the book you have given to Miroslava," Miroslava's mum said after comforting her daughter. She spoke with a strong Ukrainian accent. "Thank you," Miroslava said, holding the book tight to her chest. "It's very kind of you," Miroslava's mum went on. "My daughter loves Robert Lewandowski, and Betsy says you have some questions." Archie nodded. "Is it okay to ask?" Yes, please," Miroslava's mum smiled encouragingly. "I wanted to know about Miroslava's dad," Archie asked. "Why didn't he come with you?" Archie felt his dad's hand on his shoulder. "I think it was the question about the football shirt she meant, Archie. Is that right?" Dad was now addressing Miroslava's mum. Miroslava's mum nodded vigorously. She smiled with her mouth, not with her eyes. Then she spoke in a quiet voice. "The shirt is a gift from a kind Polish boy. He was of a family we stayed with for a few weeks in Poland after we first came away from home. He gave the shirt to Miroslava when all the clothes we had were not clean and some were wet. And now she will wear only this." The mum was trying to smile. "We must wash it every night for her. And now she has this book from you and the card inside. She will take them everywhere she goes too, I think. You are kind, Archie. Thank you." "Right, Archie," Dad interrupted. "Football, we better be off." Archie was grateful for his dad moving things on. He felt rubbish about asking about Miroslava's dad and the way her mum had reacted. "Thank you," Miroslava said, the book still tight against her chest, eyes on Archie. Her mum added, "You must come to tea one day so we can thank you. One day, maybe." Then Archie and his dad left. They walked in silence to the car. Once inside, Dad put his hand on Archie's shoulder. "You all right, mate?" "Things can be that..." Archie shrugged. Sorry, I'll start that bit again. Then Archie... "Thank you," Miroslava said, the book still tight against her, eyes on Archie. Her mum added, "You must come to tea so we can thank you one day, maybe." Then Archie and his dad left. They walked to the car in silence. Once inside, Dad put his hand on Archie's shoulder. "You all right, mate?" Archie shrugged. Again, he felt all weird inside. What was going on? "Things like that can be tricky," Dad filled the silence. "But you did a nice thing. That's what everyone will remember." "Shouldn't I have asked about her dad?" Archie asked. Dad frowned. "I don't know. It's tricky, like I said. Just remember what you did came from a good place. A kind place. I was proud of you." "So, what has happened to her dad?" Archie asked. And that's the end of chapter 2. Thank you for listening.